Hello, my name is Sally Openshaw, and I want to welcome you to our webinar on social media. I work as a psychotherapist and a sexual and relationship therapist, so I'm really interested in social media because often it's the third party in a couple relationship. So I'm here with my colleague, Natalie.
Hi, Sally. I'm Natalie Wilkie. I work as a therapist and I also work in organisations, working around organisational development and emotional intelligence. I'm really interested in social media because I see an awful lot of clients now, often younger clients, that really struggle with the social media situation and what comes up for them with friends and with groups of people on social media. So it's a real key part of a lot of the stuff that I'm working with.
So what we plan to do with you today is cover four main areas. We're going to define what social media is. We're going to talk about the positive benefits of social media. We will then discuss the negative impact that social media has. And we will end with thinking about your relationship with social media and the balance that you may have in your life between involvement and choice not to be involved.
So the definition of social media in its official form is it's an interactive form of communication that allows users to interact and to publish to each other, generally by means of the internet.
So let's go to our first slide about positive benefits, because the belief out there is that social media is good for us. It increases connection between us and others. And that's the first important point on this slide. It enables people to stay in touch. So it also enables for you as trainers and teachers to facilitate learning that can happen online by creating groups. And I think all of us have experienced a lot of training and teaching through Zoom over the last few weeks. And that has no boundary. You can train and teach people across the world from the privacy of your own home. We also find it as a wonderful platform for showcasing things, so particularly art or projects that you may be involved in. And so it's a way of getting information of other people's ideas and also showing your own ideas to others. It can be a very useful technique or resource for people who have more social awkwardness. So if it's difficult for you to interact with real people, to be able to go online and meet people in that way can really help those who find it awkward. And there is an organization called Meet Me, which has groups for people who want to meet online who find it awkward to be outside with others in reality. The other positive thing is that you can create a digital footprint for yourself. So you can present yourself online in ways that you might want to show yourself off. And it's interesting, I'm about to interview some people this weekend, and it's interesting to see what their digital footprints are like. You can often glean a lot about someone from what they present about themselves online. And so it's always really worthwhile Googling yourself to see what comes up about you and to see if there might be posts on there that others have put up that you don't even know anything about. The other big thing that's used online is campaigning on social or political issues. And that can make you feel included in with a group of people where there's a really strong following on a subject you feel passionate about. That could be politics, could be nature, could be a whole range of things. But the inclusion with like-minded others is really important. And then you can build communities around you of people who are like yourself, who share the same beliefs. It's a platform where you can be heard. And so what you say may be listened to by others or not, but it is a potential for people to join you while listening to you and responding to the things that you're saying. You have a much wider audience than sending a letter like we might have done in the past. And the final thing is it's a great way to follow people that you admire. You can see their work, you can listen to them, you can hear them performing and offering their words of wisdom. And so you can access material you probably would never have had opportunity to access previously. So those are some of the benefits of social media that we discovered. So I'm now going to hand you over to Natalie, who's going to talk about some of the less useful benefits.
So this slide is the negative effects of social media. Social media is really tricky because, as Sally was saying, there's so much really great stuff on social media. It's a powerful place for information and groups and communities. However, quite often there can be a lot of things that come up off the back of this that make it quite complex and a real double-edged sword. So, for instance, Facebook depression. Lots of people can get quite addicted to Facebook and can kind of feel the need to connect to it constantly, which is taking them away from their real lives and actually how they integrate with people and socialize with people in their normal lives. They're doing it online, which can give this sense of disconnection in a strange kind of way. So on one side, it can give the real positive connection, but on the other side, it can disconnect people. They can feel detached, and also this addictive quality of needing to go on and on and on and constantly connect in can be quite destructive to the rest of people's lives and how they integrate. We have to be really careful because we don't know who we're talking to online. And so we have to be really careful, particularly young people who could be more vulnerable to being targeted by people that could, have activities that that are not great for them. And so we have to be really careful of things like stalking and stranger danger. And because people can hide behind a profile and pretend to be, a 14-year-old young man when actually they're, a 60-year-old woman. We just don't know. One of the things as well on social media is there's certain groups that people can get connected into, which can be very positive for many people. However, we also have to be very aware of these groups and what their motives are, and the key thing for teachers to be aware of and parents is this prevent activity and grooming people, getting them involved in certain activities that they wouldn't normally be involved in, and encouraging them into those. Also, quite a few of my clients will bring things around bullying that they have experienced online, and it's really, really difficult online to communicate in writing. Videos and things like that are probably a bit easier, but in writing online, it's really hard to communicate exactly what you want to say. So, there's a real spectrum of bullying. There's people who deliberately go out there and want to troll and want to bully. And then you have people that go out there who are at the other end, where they are just trying to get a point across, and they don't do it very well. So it comes across in a negative way to somebody else. And you have to be really talented to get something across sometimes, especially if it's a difficult conversation. Sleep deprivation, this kind of ties into this addiction element, really, is that people are wanting to see, oh my gosh, I've got a ping, I've got a notification on my phone, I've got to look up and see what that says, what has happened with them, have I got all my likes? So there's this constant need to be connecting into this. You might quite often have someone with a phone on the table while they're eating, or even, texting while they're eating meals and things. And it tends to be quite insidious and can get into people's lives in a way that really disrupts their normal habits, such as sleeping and conversations and relationships. Because we see on Facebook and other social media platforms, Instagram, these amazing people that just look beautiful. And we know quite often that they could be photoshopped, or they could be, completely putting out a life that is not really theirs. And so we can often, even if we don't believe it, even if we know that there's something wrong there, we still can feel quite strongly that we're not as good as them, and that our bodies don't look the same as them, and our lives just aren't as happy as theirs, and we're not doing all the things that they're doing. which can lead to quite low self-esteem. And that in turn can lead to other things such as suicide and self-harm, where somebody might have quite difficult mental health issues, and that in turn, that constant addiction, that constant need, and the detachment from other people can lead to that mental health deteriorating and increasing. And also you sometimes get groups that will focus on those things as well, and give people tips on how to do certain things. We have to be very careful about what we post. You know, sometimes young people get carried away and they might post something that is kind of not really appropriate, is too much, and we talk about over sexualized posting. All these elements really lead to anxiety and difficulties around that, particularly if we have a very unbalanced view of social media. And social isolation, we can be, if we're very unbalanced, we can be very much focused on social isolation and keeping ourselves on our computers rather than actually engaging with people offline. For some people, that's a real benefit because they find social situations very difficult anyway. However, there is lots of information that says that real face-to-face relationships are very important. And lots of expectations we've spoken about can come on, you know, that I'm expected to do this, I'm expected to have a body like this, I'm expected to live like this. That can be a massive pressure. Poor concentration. Because of this flitting and multitasking that we're often doing with social media, there's so much going on, there's a lot to be connected into, and we're quite often doing other things. There can be this sense of losing concentration and decreased activity. So when we're on our laptops, on our phones, we're not doing the other things like going for a walk in the park or in nature, or going out and running with our friends, or, you know, we're very much focused on a screen. And as I've mentioned previously, this addiction to the internet, to social media, just becoming really, really powerful. And I think, Sally, you've mentioned before about how it really affects some of your clients, in particular in relationships, haven't you?
Definitely. And I work with quite a lot of people who have got internet addiction. And what happens in that case is that they can't stop, even if they want to, and even if it's destroying relationships. It's been quite interesting looking at the research about the negative effects of the internet, because what the research has shown is that frequent users end up feeling more socially isolated than those that are less frequent users. And when people decrease their use of the internet, actually they feel more in connection with people around them. So I think your comment earlier about how vital it is to have real connections as well as the connections you create online, that's a really important message from us today, that you can't substitute the internet for real relationship.
And I think if we are honest with ourselves and we're people that really connect into social media, we could probably tick quite a few of these off. I know that I can, you know, and I've worked in this area for a long time, but I can find that I have to really step away from social media at times and have big breaks from it, because I realize that it's really impacting on me and my health, my mental health.
It's interesting, when we were preparing this seminar, we had a conversation between ourselves about, was there anything you've ever posted online that you now regret? And I wonder if you want to share, Natalie, your comments around that.
Yeah. So in these times, you know, where politics are very important, I posted, I quite often do this, and I really wish I didn't, post things and comments on various groups or things around politics or topics of that nature. And obviously they're very, you know, key, really key topics that everyone piles in on. And then I usually do it just before bed, and then I'm up till, you know, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, because I'm trying to answer all the questions and getting angry and frustrated and thinking, oh my gosh, they've got that all wrong. And when in actual fact, you know, it's really, I shouldn't do it, because I know how I feel when I do it. So therefore, just stay there, just keep my thoughts, and not engage, particularly for before bed. I need that time to not get angry just before bed. And Sally, you had a really great one as well, didn't you? That was brilliant.
So yes, I had an experience at my 50th birthday where I was running Race for Life, and my nieces who I was running with, we had 4 generations running. They bought us all pink hot pants to wear, and that was fine for my nieces, who are tiny stick creatures, very thin, good profiles, perhaps less good on someone who's a 50-year-old woman. But anyway, they posted the images online after the race as a celebration of what we had done. But I didn't know that until friends of mine started commenting and sending pictures back, sending comments back to me about how I looked alongside them in my Lycra shorts. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have posted it. But they didn't know that, and the malice wasn't intended. But in reality, that wouldn't have been an image that I would have presented of myself online. So I imagine if you talk with the students and if you think about it yourself, you may also have examples of regret. And I think that's very important for us to bear in mind, is that we may shame ourselves without realizing it when we look back at some of the things that we can't get off that are online now. And so the last bit of this is to think about, how do you take responsibility for your online presence so that you create a balance in your life where you're using it for the benefits that are positive, but you're also taking care to make sure there are no negative aspects for yourself. And so the first thing to do to help yourself consider this is to do an audit of how much time you spend online. The research on this is great. It shows that even if we're looking for something simple like shopping or a holiday, we spend much more time than we intend to. So audit your time. Think then about, what are you doing, or what would you have been doing if you weren't online? How would that time have been spent otherwise? Would it have been more engaged in real relationships rather than online relationships? So thinking about the balance, it's really important. Natalie has talked about some of the negative effects, and I've talked about the positives, but we're wanting you to really think about the balance of those two. Is the negative overriding the positive in your situation? And so to have an honest discussion with yourself about that balancing position. The slide also makes reference to you testing yourself. It encourages you to test out less social media and noticing the impact it has on you. And certainly what I noticed when I was strictly managing my social media is I had much more time. I was amazed how much time I wasted in social media, not really getting much gain, but feeling compelled to respond to people and get involved in reading lots of stories about people's lives. And then the last thing that we would recommend is, if you want to come off and it's too difficult to come off completely, what we would recommend is that you have a go at reducing, so that you make a decision around what are the essential ones of gatherings you want to keep part of, but what might be the ones that you quit or the ones that you reduce your time. Having a clock by the machine, making a decision about end points rather than start points are all helpful tips. And if you go online, there are lots of apps to help you about reducing social media. And certainly there are products that you can put on your machine that will put some timelines in there for you to support you. So as we conclude this session, we want to give you also a really helpful thing to hold in mind. And that take-home message is, what would Grandma say? And what we mean by that is to hold that message in your mind. If you were going to be posting things that somebody, an elder, might be reading or looking at, what would their view be about your post? Because if Grandma might say, "Oof, or be upset by what they read about you, then you should really consider if it's an appropriate thing to post. So thank you very much for listening to us. Is there anything you want to add as we finish, Natalie?
No, absolutely. I think the key thing is balance. That's what comes through, doesn't it? Is balance, and that I love that statement at the end. You know, what would grandma say? You know, it's a really good test to check in and make sure that you know you're on the right track.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck with it.